My name is Sophia, and recently, I've been working from home, spending my peaceful days with my beloved husband, Ethan. Ethan is an incredibly calm and kind-hearted man. He always looks on the bright side of things and constantly wears a bright smile on his face. He sincerely listens to people's opinions and stories, often agreeing with enthusiasm, and is always ready to help without showing any sign of annoyance. At first, I felt he was a very understanding person. However, over the course of the year since we got married, I began to realize that his personality wasn't always positive.
Actually, this Sunday, some women from work are planning a barbecue event, and I've agreed to help.
Wait, wasn't this Sunday the day we planned to go to the movies? You were excited about it too, so I even booked 2 tickets in advance.
I know, but I was asked directly by my boss. We can always watch the movie another time. I think I should prioritize the barbecue this time.
Like this, he often proposes sudden changes in plans with a kind demeanor. Even if we've planned a day trip or set a date well in advance, he tends to bring up these sudden changes. If it had been a rare occurrence, maybe once every 6 months, I might have been more understanding. But in reality, Ethan often prioritized plans with others over our commitments, nearly once a month. What's more frustrating is, even if I purposely plan to enjoy a movie by myself.
Why would you watch a movie alone? Our time together is precious. Watching it together would definitely be more enjoyable.
Aren't you just going to cancel at the last minute again? It's really tiring to keep booking tickets for you like this. Eventually, all the money I spent becomes wasted.
I wish you wouldn't use such distancing words. I truly value our shared moments from the bottom of my heart.
If he really felt that way, he would have made sure not to prioritize other appointments over our plans. Over time, my faith in Ethan began to waver. I've always known that he tends to prioritize others over his own desires. Before our marriage, I found this kindness appealing. However, as we lived together after marriage, I felt that he increasingly put me and my wishes on the back burner. The feeling that he truly cherishes me is fading day by day. He shows little interest in daily household tasks and chores.
I have plans to drink with an old friend tonight, so I don't need dinner at home. Today, I had to treat a junior at work because they asked me to.
He spends his own money without worrying about our household budget. As a result, he spends more on his colleagues and superiors than on our daily lives, creating a rift in my heart. How serious are you about our future? I understand that communication with juniors and superiors is important, but do you not feel that our lives are being sacrificed for that? With the way things are going, we can't even think about saving money. Do you really think that's okay? Addressing my concerns, he calmly countered.
I've been living this lifestyle even before I married you. I don't plan on changing it. Moreover, I don't believe that one has to save money to live. In fact, I think many people live happily without significant savings.
I can't agree with his overly optimistic perspective. Above all, I believe that savings are essential for establishing a stable foundation for life. Furthermore, from his comments, I feel that he isn't considering our future, especially the matter of having children. More than his nonchalant attitude towards our daily life, his lack of concern for our future children deeply disappoints me. I've always desired to build a family, and even before we got married, I cherished the thought of having children with Ethan. Building a peaceful life with our children was the future I've always dreamed of, and I've shared these feelings with Ethan numerous times. One day, when we were discussing such a future, Ethan said with warmth in his eyes,
"The family image that you envision is truly wonderful. I also dream of having such a family, and want to enjoy everyday life with our children."
When I heard those words, I genuinely believed that he desired the same future. However, observing his actions in daily life, I increasingly feel that those words might have been just a fleeting sentiment, perhaps said just to lighten the mood. In fact, he has a habit of making promises and assertions without deep thought, just to appease others. For instance, when his boss asked him in a project if he could handle the job, he immediately replied yes. But later, he struggled with the task and failed to meet the deadline, resulting in a stern reprimand from the boss. Also, in our interactions with our mutual friends, there are similar episodes. In a conversation with friends, when the idea of going camping the next weekend came up, he said,
"I'll prepare the car, so it's all good."
But in reality, he only owns a small compact car, making it difficult to carry all the camping gear and all the participating friends. This has led to complaints from friends who proposed the plan. He tends to carelessly say what he thinks others want to hear in order to maintain his image among them. He doesn't deeply consider the consequences of his words or the responsibilities that come with them. Maybe I didn't fully understand this aspect of Ethan's personality and attitude when I decided to marry him. Now, I have to deal with various problems and troubles arising from his irresponsible words and actions. If it was just Ethan's problem, I might have endured or found a solution. But in reality, the issues I face are not just with Ethan, but extend to his family, especially Lisa, his mother.
Sophia, the other day, I mentioned to Ethan that the house key was getting stiff. He promised to cover the repair costs. So, I came to collect the promised $3,000.
What? $3,000? Did Ethan really promise such a thing? He's generous, but offering $3,000 just like that.
Well, he didn't exactly mention the amount of $3,000, but he did say he'd cover the full cost. So, I was relying on that.
But, does a key repair cost $3,000? Or are there other parts involved?
Yes, it's not just the key. I was thinking of repairing other parts at the same time. Since Ethan said he'd cover the cost, I thought I'd take this opportunity to get everything fixed.
I understand, but as I've mentioned before, our finances are tight right now because Ethan spends too much on his colleagues at work. It's honestly hard to come up with $3,000 all of a sudden. I apologized, but a look of surprise and distrust appeared on his mother's face.
But Ethan clearly said he'd cover the cost of the home repair for us. Could it be, Sophia, that you're using the money Ethan earns without his knowledge?
I would never do such a thing. It's just that our financial situation is challenging right now. I explained the situation honestly, but Lisa was insistent. Her voice escalated over financial issues, and it was audible to the neighbors. What particularly bothered me was the slightly open window of the next-door house. Shall we go inside and talk? Despite my suggestion, Lisa was more focused on criticizing my actions and attitude than discussing money.
How many times do I have to repeat myself? Sophia, even though you married Ethan, such an attitude is not acceptable. After marriage, you just stay at home waiting for Ethan to come back, don't you? I am his mother. I can't believe you can't meet even my request.
Later, I learned from Ethan that his father respected Lisa above all and always prioritized her wishes and opinions. From Ethan's childhood, their family had a value of putting family first. This probably led Lisa to mistakenly believe that the entire family revolved around her. And she wanted me to think of her as the center, just like everyone else did. However, in our household, we have our own set of rules and customs. Especially financially, we weren't always well off. Even when Lisa suddenly demanded a large amount of money, I did not yield to her demands. Because of this, she became increasingly frustrated with my attitude and made her demands more strongly several times. When I discussed this issue with Ethan, he casually replied,
"I said I'd cover the renovation costs. You should have just gone along with that."
His response infuriated me. Do you realize your mother is asking for $3,000? That's more than double your monthly salary. Despite you saying we don't need to save that much, why do you think we have such a huge amount of money? I confronted him.
"Sophia, you're also earning a decent salary. Why not just use that money to pay? It shouldn't be a problem, right?"
I was at a loss for words at his comment. It seemed like he had forgotten about our firm agreement when moving into this luxury apartment. We decided to split the monthly expenses half and half, and the remaining money was considered as individual property, not to be thought of as shared assets. We even documented this in a formal contract. When we decided to get married, close friends advised us to make such arrangements for future peace of mind, and we followed their advice. Now, I am truly grateful for making that choice. If we had shared assets, by now my savings might have been spent due to his vanity. At this rate, our relationship is unsustainable. We should consider getting a divorce. After saying that, I placed the already filled out divorce papers in front of him. He seemed truly shocked, as if he never imagined I would take such a step. I was truly surprised that he never sensed that I might choose divorce based on his previous selfish actions.
Don't joke like that.
Ethan said this laughing, but inside, I wasn't feeling it as a joke at all. Actually, I'm joining an overseas project starting next week. During that time, think seriously about our relationship and what you want to do next. Saying this, I began preparations for my business trip abroad next week. Meanwhile, Ethan didn't seem to truly grasp that I was serious about the divorce, showing no signs of distress. During my business trip, I momentarily forgot about Ethan and Lisa and focused on my work. When I was about to return to our upscale apartment, my mood was filled with anticipation for a new start. However, as I approached the apartment, I received an unexpected message from Ethan.
Sophia, I'm sorry, but you can't enter this house anymore.
I was taken aback and utterly confused by his sudden response. Before I could even process what had happened, Lisa called. With a mix of anxiety, I answered, only to hear her smug voice followed by a sarcastic comment.
Leaving your husband for an overseas trip? Isn't that a bit too extravagant? Did you have a good time?
I was both shocked and slightly annoyed by her words. Listen, Lisa. I'm in a tricky situation right now, and I don't have time to chat. Just as I was about to hang up and try to understand the cryptic message from Ethan, Lisa revealed an unexpected truth.
By the way, about that luxurious apartment, we've already submitted your divorce papers and removed you from our family. That's why you can't enter the apartment anymore.
Wait, what do you mean?
This lovely house belongs to us, right? I believe it's time for any unwanted guests to leave.
I was momentarily left speechless by her words. While I couldn't find the words to reply, Lisa continued speaking.
We've already sent all your belongings to your parents' house. Ethan left you because you were a useless wife.
She sounded triumphant. However, the fact that divorce papers had already been submitted made me feel somewhat relieved. Understood. Goodbye. I immediately hung up the phone and headed to my parents' house. When I contacted my mother, it seemed that many packages had been sent to my family home, just as Lisa had said.
We're returning a girl we no longer need to her original place.
This is what I heard from my parents.
We can't keep our precious daughter in a house like yours that doesn't understand basic manners.
That was my father's firm rebuttal. Upon arriving at my parents' home, my visibly saddened parents warmly welcomed me and gave me a comforting embrace. I saw my mother's tearful face in front of me.
Did they force you to write a divorce paper?
My parents inquired about the details, and I calmly explained that I had given the divorce papers to think about it once before I went on a business trip, not expecting this outcome.
At first, we felt he was trustworthy, but that was a big mistake. A man who doesn't care about his wife at all won't do well anywhere.
This was clear from the atmosphere at the time. They were very disappointed. To be honest, my feelings towards Ethan have waned, and I no longer have any expectations regarding his actions or thoughts. I found out that he had already blocked me, so no messages were getting through. Given this situation, I decided to proceed with terminating the lease on the apartment we were living in together. Ethan was shocked by the sudden notice from the apartment management company asking us to vacate immediately and hastily unblocked me. He called me, his voice full of doubt and surprise.
Why are we suddenly being asked to leave?
I explained the details in a text message. Did you overlook it? Faced with my clear statement and question, his arrogant attitude from earlier faded, and Ethan began to search for words.
Well, actually, I had blocked you, so I didn't see the message.
Really? After all, I signed the lease for that apartment when I was still single. Did you intend to keep living there after our divorce without any discussions? I deliberately showed my surprise while keenly observing Ethan's reaction. At that moment, he seemed to suddenly remember that I was the one who contracted the tower apartment. He became more and more at a loss for words.
Actually.
I let out a deep sigh and quietly waited for him to continue. Let me guess, you wanted to show off in front of your mom? This is my luxurious high-rise. I don't need my wife anymore, she can leave. But in reality, that apartment isn't even yours. Moreover, I've been covering over 70% of our living expenses. Knowing all this, did you think you could live there peacefully with your mom? I asked him directly. Ethan was taken aback by my barrage of questions and lost his words for a moment. It became clear that he realized his impulsive actions and regretted them. He has a pattern of acting first and facing the consequences later. But I'm not interested in cleaning up after his messes anymore. Suddenly, from a distance, I heard his mother's voice.
Ethan, could you hand the phone to me for a moment?
From the tone of her voice, it was evident that she hadn't realized that the tower apartment was mine.
Give back everything that belongs to Ethan right now. Did you sneakily do something behind our backs? Did you steal important documents like ownership deeds and contracts and terminate the contract? Just how low can you stoop?
I was filled with surprise and laughter, and I couldn't help but smile.
What's so funny? Explain yourself.
Listening to her shouting in anger, I decided to explain the situation to her calmly. Actually, that tower apartment is something I contracted for when I was single. Ethan just moved in with me. After our wedding, we talked about finding a new place, but once the wedding was over, he said he didn't have the money to buy a new house. I was honestly surprised when I heard this. I thought he would have planned a little better if he had thought about our future residence.
I can't believe you're saying all this.
Do you think it's unreasonable for me to ask why Ethan was asked to vacate the apartment? The reason is that the apartment is under my name, and I officially terminated the contract. And didn't Ethan resist precisely because his name wasn't on it? Think deeply once more. Lisa, perhaps, thanks to the unconditional love from Ethan and her late husband, lived a life fulfilling her desires. However, one should understand that the power and position of a beloved family member isn't eternal. In the past, her husband held a high position in the company and could afford to meet my demands. But Ethan doesn't have such a background. His selfish and ostentatious nature, and the habit of turning away from the truth have brought down his position and reputation at work. The fact that his net income pay is only $1,500 is a part of that reality. Supporting his mother financially is quite difficult in the current circumstances.
But you seem to be at home all the time.
Yes, I work from home most of the time. And, to your surprise, I earn more than Ethan. If I wasn't earning, with Ethan's small salary, it would be hard to run the household.
What are you saying? Are you saying Ethan earns so little, and that we might have to let go of this grand apartment? Moreover, we've already sold the ancestral home.
I took a deep breath. In fact, Ethan and you might be facing these circumstances because both of you failed to recognize and address issues in your attitudes and perspectives in the past. Perhaps there were people around to guide you to the right path. But by not heeding their advice and continuing your previous ways, you've landed in this tough situation now. For the first time, Ethan firmly rebutted his mother's continuous demands and whims.
I can't even think of supporting you financially, Mom.
Until now, Ethan often bent to the whims and demands of Lisa. This time, however, seems to be different. Maybe he came to sense the constraints and contradictions of living a life merely to satisfy others' expectations. Perhaps he finally realized how his past actions and choices have complicated his life. Even if he starts to change, I'm not interested in re-establishing a relationship with him. Whatever path he and his mother choose is up to them. On the other hand, I recently received advice from my father.
Rather than settling for just any man, wait for the right one.
Trusting this advice, I met a new man through a trusted acquaintance. I genuinely hope this new relationship turns out to be wonderful for both of us.
Are you still unmarried? My spouse is a stunning secretary. You are a lowly high school graduate, and I live in a totally other world. My old classmate John started disparaging me as soon as we got back together after a 30-year separation. After high school, I was the only one among us unable to continue our education. I could see why he wanted to brag. He wanted to share the news of his stunning wife's professional accomplishment. I could have gone to a better high school than John, and wouldn't have had to start working right out of high school if my family hadn't been struggling financially. I was a loser in that regard at the time. It was then that I noticed a woman in a blue suit coming back with food on her plate. I understand. She must be John's renownedly attractive secretary. Allow me to present you. This is Ashley, my wife. Gorgeous, isn't she? She might be deemed attractive, but her makeup was heavy. Ashley began to shake when she saw me. Michael Robinson is my name. This year, I turned 45. I am the president of Robinson Construction, a 7,200-person corporation. After hearing this, one may assume that I've lived a life of privilege and distinction. But the truth is anything but privileged. It was an ongoing battle of resentment and adversity. My family didn't have much money. My mother was left to raise me alone after my father vanished shortly after I was born. I just remember my mother frying bread crust in oil. I don't remember ever having snacks. I would have most likely passed out on the way home from school if there hadn't been school meals. It's difficult to believe that a child in a developed nation like the U.S. would experience continual hunger. Naturally, I turned to studying any time I had free time because I couldn't afford games. I consequently consistently finished at the top of my primary school class. I was favored by my professors, and I was able to forget about the struggles of poverty while I was in school. Even in high school, my grades were excellent, and I was respected by my peers. I took on leadership roles, serving as class president and student council president, leading a fulfilling school life. Everything changed towards the end of my sophomore year of high school when it was time to decide on a future path. Both my mother and my teacher had pained expressions on their faces. Despite having the grades to easily get into the top university in the state, our financial situation meant I couldn't pursue higher education. My mother tearfully pleaded with my teacher. "Isn't there anything we can do? He loves studying and has good grades. It's too cruel to deprive him of the opportunity to study just because he was born into a poor family." My acquaintance, the president of a construction company, actively supports students who work hard through adversity. How about we trust Michael to him? He could work while taking distance education courses and earn a college degree. After hearing this, my mother pondered for a while. Construction. But I've heard it's a tough field. I doubt he'd have time to study leisurely with the daily grind. Continuing his studies seems impossible. It all depends on Michael's effort. It's tough and requires perseverance, but it's not impossible. The president is a passionate and upstanding person. Why not give it a try? Thanks to my teacher's encouragement, I ended up working for Robinson Construction, while everyone else went to college. I was branded a loser. At that point, there was one person who gleefully watched my life's downturn: John Smith. Since elementary school, he had always been my academic rival. John's mother was extremely keen on education, making him study all the time, except for Christmas Day. During elementary school, I was also interested in playing around, so I couldn't always score perfect marks, making John the top student of the year. However, things changed in high school. Still harboring hopes for the future, I wanted to go to college and learn more. Once I started studying seriously, I quickly surpassed John, and throughout high school, I never relinquished my position as the top student. We even aspired to the same university, the one with the highest SAT scores in the state. You're aiming for the same college as me, huh? But do you even have the money to attend and pay tuition? He hit a sore spot, and I was left speechless. This issue had always been buried deep within me. Telling my mother would only make her sad, and sharing it with other adults would only garner sympathy, nothing more. While everyone else took for granted their dreams of college life, for me, it was a distant, unattainable future. The only selfish request I made during that time was to at least let me take the entrance exams. That year, I placed at the top of those exams, finally making peace with my situation. Thus, after graduating high school, John went on to college, and I started my career at Robinson Construction. The construction industry is a male-dominated field where loud voices can be heard everywhere. As someone who was still clueless, I was trained on site by Jack Robinson, the president of Robinson. When I first joined the company, I rented a room in Jack's house, where I was allowed to live. I managed to secure time for study at night, while working hard on my tasks. At that time, Jack's wife was pregnant, and they soon welcomed a new member to their family, a lovely girl named Sarah. Sarah became very attached to me, and whenever I was away for work, she would cry loudly, looking for me. Sarah really likes you, Michael. She won't stop crying even when her father holds her, but she smiles as soon as you pick her up. I gained experience with other carpenters on site, but eventually I was told that I was better suited for office work, such as calculations and design. I quickly learned to work on a computer and became a valuable asset. In due course, I graduated from a correspondence university. Feeling a sense of accomplishment, I decided not to pursue graduate school. By the time I was in my 30s, I started to be entrusted with important management roles in the company. Having someone who knows the field in charge can significantly change the flow of work. The voice of the site workers was better heard, and the management side could provide more detailed instructions. The company's performance improved significantly. The number of employees increased, and the company grew substantially. When I first joined, it was a medium-sized construction company, but now it has become a large corporation. At that time, Sarah had turned 18 and was growing up to be simply beautiful. We remained close, and Sarah developed romantic feelings for me. Eventually, my feelings for her evolved from seeing her as a reliable little sister to wanting to protect her at all costs. One day, I was called to a high-end restaurant by Jack, where I was told something surprising. "Michael, do you have a girlfriend or someone you like?" "No, I'm quite happy with my work." "Then would you consider marrying Sarah? She wants to marry you no matter what. I'd rather have her marry someone I trust like you than someone unknown." As I was processing the situation, the sliding door at the back opened, and Sarah entered, dressed in a beautiful gown. Finally understanding the situation, I straightened up and melted, looking at Sarah. Though our feelings were mutual, I still wanted to formally propose. "Jack, please let me marry Sarah. I promise to make her happy." Sarah shed tears and whispered, "Thank you." Thus, I married Sarah and took the Robinson surname. Although I was prepared for some jealousy, almost all the employees were supportive. Having something to protect might indeed change a man. Recently, you seem to have gained a sense of dignity, Michael. Maybe it's because of your long experience in society. It makes me feel safe to follow you. Sarah's reliance and the deep love I feel for her daily are gratifying. 30 years after entering the workforce, I turned 45 and took over as the second president of the company. A significant land development project was underway in our state's central area, and Robinson played a crucial role. That night, a reception for companies involved in the land development was held in a large hotel hall. I attended with 2 other employees. The hall, filled with men from the construction industry, was buzzing with energy. Not only were there employees from companies already involved in the development, but salesmen from companies looking to join were also present. The reception welcomed families, and I saw a few women who looked like the wives of construction company presidents. Sarah mentioned she might join if she finished her chores in time. My colleagues rushed to the buffet, and I took a moment to survey the surroundings with a champagne glass in hand. I locked eyes with a man I recognized from somewhere. He approached me with a big smile. "Michael, is that you?" "It's John. I heard you became a carpenter, but you're involved in this development project too. It's been a long time. I'm surprised you recognize me. It's been 30 years since we last met. I'm a sales department manager, so remembering faces and names is part of my job. I've always been confident in my memory. You don't look much like a carpenter." Initially, I was hired as a carpenter, so he probably thinks I'm still working on site. 30 years have passed, and people change positions or even careers. But it seems John's mind is still stuck at the moment he beat me in high school. Since there was nobody by my side, he must have assumed I didn't bring any family. "Are you still alone?" "Well, I guess that's to be expected. My wife is a beautiful secretary. I'm living in a different world than a high school graduate like you." Just as we reunited after 30 years, he quickly started looking down on me. I was the only one among my classmates who didn't go on to further education after high school graduation. So I understand the desire to boast, wanting to spread the word about his beautiful wife and how he's excelling at work. I get it. If my family hadn't been poor, I wouldn't have had to work right after high school, and I could have attended a better university than John. In that sense, I was a loser back then. Then a woman dressed in a navy blue suit came back with food on a plate. I see she must be John's much bragged about beautiful secretary. This suit is plain, but perhaps she can't dress too flashy given her position as a secretary. "Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Ashley. Beautiful, isn't she?" I glanced at Ashley and smiled warmly. Sure, she could be considered beautiful, but I always thought she wore too much makeup. Noticing me, Ashley started to tremble. "Thank you for the other day. It must have been hard for you. Since then, I'm really sorry about what happened last time. Both the manager and I have been reflecting deeply, and we were planning to apologize in a few days." During our conversation, John, realizing we weren't strangers, gave me a puzzled look. "What's this about?" "My Ashley works in a trading company. There's no way she'd have anything to do with a carpenter like you." "What are you talking about?" "This man is the president of Robinson, the top construction company in the state. We've been doing large transactions with them, and I made a terrible mistake the other day." Ashley was the secretary to the sales manager of one of Robinson's business partners. John had made it sound like she was the president's secretary, but she wasn't in such a responsible position. She had arranged a meeting with the manager and me, but due to a scheduling mistake by Ashley, the meeting fell through. Ashley deeply apologized. "I know this is a lot to ask, but could you give us another chance? For my husband's sake, I promise not to make such a disrespectful mistake again. Please, for your husband's sake." "Ha. Well, I know him, but we're not exactly close. All right, I'll give you another chance, but make sure you're on time this time." "Thank you so much." Ashley continued apologizing, almost in tears. John was stunned at first, but as he began to understand the situation, he turned pale. "Robinson, as in the big corporation. You're its president. How did you become a president at your age with just a high school diploma?" "Well, I worked hard. I've been in the workforce longer than most, so maybe I've just put in more effort." Ashley nodded, deeply impressed. "Your achievements are well known to us. You were reputed to be talented, but it's your attitude towards valuing the network of people you work with that's highly regarded." John's mood worsened as he saw his proud, beautiful wife bowing and scraping to me, whom he looked down upon, making him feel even more inferior. "So you were married too?" Ashley asked. "Yeah, I got married when I was 23. How long have you and Ashley been married?" John replied, I'm married at 32. We're both career-oriented, leading a work-centered life. A power couple, having the economic means to always dress beautifully. Both spouses building their careers is indeed something to boast about. Ashley looked around. Is Mrs. Robinson not here? I've heard she's beautiful. I've been wanting to meet her. My wife should be here soon. Then I'll introduce you. Just the mention of a beautiful wife soured John's mood further, but he probably thought it was just an exaggeration typical of the spouses of important clients. Then Sarah hurried over. Sorry I'm late. The kids just wouldn't go to sleep. John and Ashley were surprised by Sarah's youth. Your wife. How old is she? She looks so young. She's 30 this year. My wife was born the year I joined Robinson. It feels like I've been watching her grow up, waiting for her to mature. Well, it's just like a love story from a movie or drama, isn't it? Every man's dream. Ashley said, clearly amused. I couldn't help but feel a bit flattered. Scratching my head in embarrassment, I explained to Sarah, who joined us late, about John and Ashley. I decided to marry Michael since I was born. I didn't want to risk someone else taking him away, so we got married as soon as I turned 18. What a lovely story. How old are your children now? They're only 5 and 3 years old. We wanted to enjoy some time together as a couple after getting married, so we went on trips abroad and played golf, enjoying a long honeymoon period. Despite Sarah's innocent words, I could sense Ashley's turmoil. It was probably because of Sarah's visible pregnancy. Sarah loves elegant fashion and doesn't seem like someone who is busy raising small children. The jewelry, bags, and shoes she wears are all top of the line. She only buys limited edition items from well-known brands, making her the envy of her brand-loving friends. Ashley seems to compare her belongings to Sarah's and feels down because Sarah seems to have a high interest in branded goods. Even after marrying John, thinking we would have a comfortable life financially, his spending habits are so bad that I still need to work to support our family. So we ended up giving up on having children. Ashley bit her lip in frustration. It must be hard for her to see Sarah affectionately caressing her belly, especially if she gave up on having children for her career. Men can father children at a much older age, but it's not the same for women. John looked displeased, listening to the women's conversation. There's no use complaining about it now. And when it comes to spending, you're just as bad. Normally, if both spouses work, they contribute equally to the household. You always spend so much on your motorcycle hobby, leaving me to foot the bill. And you think flattering your pretty secretary will make everything okay. You're one to talk, buying all those unnecessary brand bags and clothes. Having one of each should be enough. But no, you buy a new one every time a new collection comes out. As the argument between the couple escalated, Sarah left to get some food. I opened another bottle of champagne, pondering over John's life. He went from the top high school in the state to a prestigious university, landed a coveted sales job, and married a beautiful woman. Without children, he must have more disposable income than most. He used to enjoy making others envious of his lifestyle, but now, having reconnected with me, he must realize that someone he once looked down upon is actually living a happier life. Comparing yourself to others only leads to dissatisfaction. Even if you surpass someone, there's always someone else better. I consider myself happy, but not because I compare myself to John. Happiness is not about feeling superior to others. I'm not a world-renowned millionaire, and I have my share of struggles at work. Comparing myself to the world's rich would be absurd. Since I came here to socialize, I'm looking for new connections. I was about to distance myself from John when he grabbed my sleeve to stop me. Hey, Michael, could you consider doing business with my company? We've been trying to expand into the Asian market, but it failed. We're thinking of shifting to local development projects. So you're saying you missed the boat while focusing overseas? That's a big mistake, I responded. We studied together in high school. Let's work together again as adults. It was a ridiculous proposition. I couldn't understand how he came to that conclusion. I still remember John's contemptuous remark about whether I could afford college tuition. With me out of the picture, he must have felt superior being a top student. There's no good in associating with him now, and I don't particularly feel inclined to. Frankly, John's presence is just annoying. I'm sorry, but I have to decline. I don't see us having a pleasant relationship. John was dumbfounded, clearly not expecting a rejection. Please, Michael, don't say that. My sales haven't been great lately, and I might be demoted if things don't improve. I want to avoid that at all costs. As harsh as it sounds, that's just a reflection of your capabilities. Who would want to start a new deal with someone who's failing? Meanwhile, Ashley, who had been silent until now, chimed in, "Please, do this for me as well. Despite what I'm saying, the truth is, if our performance doesn't improve, I might be forced to leave the company. If John loses his job, we won't be able to live like we used to." "What did you do?" I asked. Ashley reluctantly begins to speak, biting his lip in frustration. Actually, he had an affair with a client's wife. As a result, that couple ended up divorcing, and we were sued for a large sum in damages. The company found out, and now I'm handing in my resignation. Are you okay with that, Ashley? I know you from our professional dealings, so I have some idea of your character. Aren't you actually unable to forgive him? Ashley looks down silently, then spits out in frustration. I don't want to just throw everything away as it is. I plan to leave him once he's able to stand on his own 2 feet. What? You plan to divorce me? I haven't heard anything about this. I was listening to their argument from a distance. There's no way their relationship can be mended, and I have no intention of getting involved with them or entertaining any business dealings to avoid further provocation. I quietly left their side, met up with Sarah, and we left after a while. What follows is what I heard directly from Ashley about the ongoing situation. The urban redevelopment project in the county involves various industries, but John's company couldn't get involved anywhere. The scandal involving John, the sales manager, had become well known, and it was the reason upper management, considering the company's survival at risk, decided to let John go. Being allowed to take early retirement was a small consolation. The severance pay went to the damages claimed by the husband of John's affair, leaving almost nothing for John himself. Ashley decided to give up on John and presented him with divorce papers. Living with John had its happy moments, but I've moved on. Fortunately, I have a job, no kids, and plan to take better care of myself from now on. John, once proud of his high-earning wife, now faced the reality of living on his own without sufficient means. As the divorce settlement shaved his savings, he was forced to sell his home. Unwilling to lower his lifestyle, John set high expectations for his next job. However, positions that met his high standards were rare. His miscalculations weren't just about his position. Previously, living off both his and Ashley's salaries allowed for a quite affluent lifestyle. Now, even with the same salary, he had to cut his living standards in half. Without a job, John moved to a cheaper apartment. Eventually, he might have thought staying in this place was the problem, and quietly moved to another state. No one, including Ashley, knows what happened to John afterward. Meanwhile, Ashley is doing well in life. Initially regretting not having children, she found new purpose in volunteer work, invited by a friend hoping to make a difference in the lives of underprivileged children abroad. Next year, she plans to visit Africa to meet those children. She sold all her luxury brands, living minimally. I'm grateful to you for giving me a chance to change my perspective on life now, Ashley says, cheerfully with simpler makeup and clothing. She caught the attention of some male colleagues, making her future seem promising. 3 months later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy girl. We became parents of 3. The responsibility is greater, but the kids are irreplaceable treasures. Sarah says she wants one more, and I'm all for it. Growing up poor, I can't let my children face the same fate. Maintaining my health and working hard is crucial. Lately, I've come to understand what it means to live vicariously through your children. However, I'm careful not to force them into what I believe is right, trusting Sarah to keep me in check. The county's redevelopment project is progressing well. Due to the lack of adequate transportation in this region, reliance on cars is inevitable. Those who have disabilities have to drive a car to get to the hospital. It's a problem occurring all across the U.S. However, in 5 years, the development of subway lines and dedicated bus lanes will enable people to travel to many places without needing a car. I've heard that autonomous buses will also be introduced on a trial basis. The number of hospitals and nursing homes is expected to increase as well. Even though I'm working hard now, we will all inevitably age. We're striving to make our town more livable for when that time comes, not just for us, but for the future of our children. Doing all we can now is the only way forward. As I look up at a building under construction, I make a renewed pledge to myself to strive even harder. No performer. You must be kidding me. The celebration was about to start in just 10 minutes. With its glittering decorations, the venue was alive with excitement, laughing, and expectation, adding to its beauty. But beneath that joyous exterior, there was an uncommon tension in the staff room. The last-minute cancellation of the pianist was due to poaching. In some way, we must apologize to the visitors. Her normal calmness abruptly disappeared, and her face went white in a flash. Her quiet whisper appeared to reverberate in the silence chamber, as though her words were absorbed by the walls. I moved ahead, breaking the thick silence. "Give me a suit, please." Her eyes flitted with fear and amazement. This is the tale of a man who, as he approached retirement, took the audacious choice to assist a needy woman. Aaron is my name. My age is 57. I am employed as a server at a restaurant at a high-end hotel that is a part of a national hotel chain. The main location is this one, which is renowned for its elegance and ability to enthrall visitors. The restaurant had an air of grandeur that transported one to a different planet. The roof gleamed with opulent chandeliers as soon as you stepped inside. The tables were exquisitely covered with immaculate white linens, and the crystal glasses and finely polished cutlery were set precisely. Under a pure blue sky, a wall of large windows provided a panoramic view of the lovely town. The view changed at night as the lights sparkled like gems outside the glass, enveloping the room in a beautiful atmosphere. It was an environment that promised life-changing experiences. The hall was filled with happy laughter and the soft clinking of glasses. Each table's patrons enjoyed delectable food while having animated conversations. The cuisine, prepared by talented chefs, was truly artistic and delighted both the palate and the eyes. Each table was given life by the aroma and colorful presentation, which made the guests' faces beam with happiness and contentment. I was proud to work as a server in such a setting. I concentrated on completing my work without attracting undue attention by staying discreet and courteous. My performance was neither outstanding nor deficient. The same was true of my coworkers' assessments of me. I devoted my days to doing the job that was given to me. I strolled around the floor during the hectic lunch hours, meticulously following the schedule that was set for me, collecting orders from tables, transmitting them to the kitchen, and bringing dishes to the patrons. I had an obligation to make sure the procedure went smoothly. One day, after the usual lunch rush had ended, I was cleaning up the dining hall. The busy period had passed, leaving the restaurant in a brief moment of calm. Empty plates and cutlery were scattered across tables, and I swiftly began clearing them. Using a slightly damp cloth, I wiped the tables, arranging the cutlery on a tray while subconsciously listening to the background music playing. "Aaron, could you lend a hand in the dishwashing area?" The one who suddenly spoke to me was a younger colleague on the staff. His face bore a hint of urgency, reflecting the chaotic state of the dishwashing area. I paused, turned around quietly, and faced him. With a single phrase, I replied briefly, "Sorry, but I can't do that." At that moment, his expression shifted to one of confusion. The younger staff member stared straight at me, his gaze probing for an explanation. Why not? It'll only take a little of your time. However, I kept my gaze steady and gave a brief response. Don't ask why. A heavy silence filled the space, as if time itself had paused. My colleague, visibly puzzled by my words, hesitated, and the awkward tension grew between us. Then Tom, the manager, appeared from the back. Hey, what's going on here? With his usual calm demeanor, Tom stepped in between us, gently pacifying my colleague and diffusing the situation. At Tom's words, my colleague relaxed his shoulders and eventually left the scene. Tom glanced at me briefly, let out a small sigh, and said, "Aaron, come with me." I nodded silently and followed him down a quiet hallway, away from the busy restaurant. Leaning against the wall, Tom studied my face for a moment before speaking. "Aaron, I won't be able to shield you much longer. He is set to retire at the end of this fiscal year." There was a faint hint of sadness in his expression. "I'm sorry for causing trouble." I bowed my head to Tom. "Don't push yourself too hard, but please try to get along with everyone." His voice carried a gentle warmth, a sincere concern for me. Understood. The distant hum of the restaurant's activity reached us faintly, feeling strangely far away. An indescribable unresolved heaviness churned within me. In the refined elegance of this hotel, I often felt like I didn't quite belong, like I was out of place. The new restaurant manager, Caitlin, arrived on a crisp morning that signaled the beginning of autumn. Her voice, as she introduced herself during the morning meeting, was clear and naturally commanded attention. "Good morning, my name is Caitlin, and starting today, I'll be managing this restaurant. I aim to bring the same level of success we've achieved at other locations to this flagship venue, and foster even greater growth here. I look forward to working with you all." Recognized for her operational excellence at other hotels in the chain, Caitlin had been assigned to this flagship location. Despite its prestige, the restaurant faced challenges: a lack of innovation, insufficient focus on attracting new customers, and limited cost management efforts. Caitlin's determined goal was to overhaul these traditional approaches and bring about change. Her resolve was evident in every word she spoke. Although the applause following her introduction was somewhat restrained, it seemed every staff member could sense her strong, unwavering character. During her first few days, Caitlin made it a point to thoroughly inspect the floor and kitchen, speaking one-on-one with staff members. She clearly wanted to understand the existing operations in detail. As part of this process, she eventually reached out to me. "Aaron, do you have a moment?" It was after the lunch rush, once the cleanup had settled down. She invited me to a quiet corner at the back of the kitchen. Her expression was gentle, but her sharp eyes hinted at an intense focus. "I've heard you've worked here for many years, Aaron. Your experience is highly valued." "Thank you." "Well, I've just been here a long time. That's all," I answered with a slight shrug. Caitlin shook her head with a gentle smile. "Not at all, but there is something I'd like to ask you about." Her tone was gentle, but the words, "a point of concern," made me sit up a little straighter. "Aaron, your work is very meticulous and gives a sense of reliability. However, during the busy lunch hours, I think we need a bit more speed. While your calm and steady service is ideal for the dinner shift, lunch requires a faster turnover rate." As she spoke carefully, her expression was entirely serious. I simply replied, "Understood." However, her next suggestion left me at a loss. "If possible, could we switch you to the evening shift? Your meticulous service would be greatly appreciated by our dinner guests." Without thinking, I shook my head. "I'm sorry, but that won't be possible." I had my reasons for refusing, but I didn't feel like explaining them. Caitlin seemed slightly surprised by my reaction, but she quickly regained her composure and continued in a calm tone. "Is that so? May I ask why?" At that moment, a soft knock echoed from the direction of the restaurant's entrance. Caitlin glanced in that direction for a moment and said, "I'm sorry. Let's continue this conversation later," before heading toward the door. Standing there was a young man. It was Seth, the guest pianist for the limited-time event. Dressed in a simple black suit, he looked slightly nervous. One of Caitlin's initiatives was a live piano performance event aimed at boosting afternoon patronage, and Seth had been invited for this purpose. A graduate student at a music conservatory, he was a rising star with several competition awards and an active presence on social media, where he shared performance videos. Caitlin greeted him with a warm smile and guided him to the waiting room. Watching them walk away, I felt an inexplicable sense of unease. Soft afternoon sunlight streamed through the window into the waiting room, and the entire space was wrapped in a gentle warmth. Amid that serene atmosphere, an irritated voice echoed, "I'm telling you, this kind of job just isn't for me." The voice, which carried through the door, belonged to Seth, the guest pianist. Holding a tray of refreshments, I froze, unsure when to knock. I only agreed because Kevin pushed me into it. Playing at some old-fashioned restaurant like this, honestly, it's ridiculous. It sounded like he was on the phone with someone. His tone was sharp, and his dissatisfaction was blatantly obvious. The content of his words, belittling the job at this restaurant, was hard to listen to. Whatever, I'll just get through it and call it a day. This isn't the place to showcase what I'm really capable of anyway. Sensing that the call was about to end, I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A prompt reply of "come in" followed immediately. When I opened the door, Seth was lounging casually in a chair, showing no signs of fluster. "Here's a little refreshment. Thank you for your hard work." I placed the tray in front of him. It was a set of cookies and tea. Seth glanced at me and said in a curt voice, "Oh, thanks. Your performance is highly anticipated." The guests seemed to be looking forward to it. At my words, he immediately brightened and smirked. "Right. That program was actually designed by my mentor, Kevin. Well, it only shines because I'm the one playing it." He continued, leaning back with a smug look. "Even this job, Kevin personally recommended me for it. Normally, opportunities like this don't just come along, but he probably vouched for me because he knows my talent." I was a bit taken aback by his boastful attitude that carried on the conversation. For someone so young, winning so many competitions is truly impressive. "Yeah, I guess it's all talent. I don't even need to put in much effort." His words, laced with arrogance, had a sharp edge, but I managed to smile and left the room. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, I let out a deep sigh. That attitude, those words, while his confidence felt excessive, I couldn't deny that his achievements were genuine. Leaving the waiting room and returning to the restaurant floor, I saw Caitlin standing by the counter. She seemed to be deep in thought about something. I mustered my courage and called out to her. "Caitlin, why did you plan this live piano performance?" Her eyes widened for a moment in surprise, but she soon smiled softly. "Aaron, do you know how special this hotel used to be?" "No, honestly. I don't know much about its history." Caitlin sat at the edge of the counter and began speaking slowly. "When I was a child, this hotel had a real pianist, and live performances were a daily thing. On special occasions, my parents would bring me here. We'd enjoy a wonderful meal while being surrounded by incredible music." Her gaze drifted far away, as if recalling those cherished memories. Her vivid descriptions painted a scene in my mind, so clearly that it felt as though I was there. "But when I was in middle school, I lost my parents in an accident. I haven't returned to this hotel since then, but I can still vividly remember the music from that time," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Sensing the emotion in her words, I found myself at a loss for what to say. "That's why I wanted to recreate that space, even if only a little. I want our guests to experience the same magic." Her words carried the weight of her dedication to her work, and I could feel how deeply she cared. This year marks the hotel's 50th anniversary. To commemorate the milestone, a grand party was planned. It would be a special evening, bringing together the hotel's executives and notable guests who had long been associated with the establishment from the beginning. Perfection was demanded in every aspect of preparation, and the staff worked tirelessly with a shared sense of purpose. During a morning meeting, Caitlin addressed the team with a firm expression, her voice ringing with determination. "Everyone, this is more than just a party. It's an event that represents the hotel's 50 years of history and its future. Let's give it our all." Her words inspired a sense of focus and discipline in the team. However, her face, usually composed, now showed signs of exhaustion from the relentless effort she had been putting in. Noticing this, I couldn't help but speak up. "Caitlin, maybe you should take a short break for a moment." Her expression faltered, showing a hint of hesitation. Then she quickly returned to her usual poised smile. "Thank you for your concern, but don't worry. I will make sure this party is a success," she replied in a resolute tone. The day of the party finally arrived. The restaurant was enveloped in an unprecedented sense of tension. Lavish decorations befitting the 50th anniversary celebration adorned the space, with table settings more dazzling than ever before. The staff worked tirelessly to ensure they weren't overwhelmed by the grandeur of the occasion. I was one of them. While guiding the distinguished guests as a waiter, I kept a close eye on my surroundings, making sure Caitlin and the other staff could operate smoothly. Guests arrived one after another, and the restaurant buzzed with a luxurious hum of activity. Among them were the hotel's executives, longtime regulars, and even some well-known personalities from outside the establishment. Dressed in elegant gowns and tailored suits, they mingled with a mix of anticipation and curiosity. Their conversations lightly hummed, yet a nagging sense of unease lingered in the back of my mind. Seth, the pianist we had hired, had yet to arrive. Has there been any word from him? I overheard Caitlin asking another staff member. Even her typically calm demeanor seemed to waver slightly, betraying her concern. Not yet. Caitlin's expression darkened momentarily before she forced a smile. Let's wait a little longer. However, as the scheduled start time drew closer, there was still no sign of Seth or any communication from him. Caitlin's phone suddenly rang, and when she glanced at the screen, her face froze. I approached her cautiously, observing her reaction. "What do you mean canceling at the last minute?" She stood there, pale-faced, clenching her shaking hands into fists. "Canceled?" I asked hesitantly. She gave a small nod. "He took another job, and apparently, his mentor told him he didn't need to come here. This is beyond irresponsible." Her voice was filled with a mix of anger and despair. As the tense atmosphere enveloped everyone in the room, I found myself speaking up. "Caitlin, can I see the program?" Caitlin looked at me surprised. "What? Aaron, what are you?" Caitlin hesitated, but handed me the program. I looked through the list. It included classical masterpieces for the welcome performance, and pop songs and movie themes for the mingling period. "This might just be something I can handle," I said. "Where is the wardrobe?" When I asked, Caitlin, still in shock, guided me there. "Could it be, Aaron? There's no way an amateur performance could satisfy guests with such refined taste." At her words, I smiled softly. "Actually, I used to be a musician. I think I can manage this program. Please trust me, just a little." Caitlin's eyes reflected a mix of surprise and doubt, but eventually, she gave a small nod. "Then I'll leave it to you. I trust you." Sitting at the piano, I could see the black lacquered surface of the grand piano shimmering under the chandelier light. The expectant gazes of the audience filled the silent room. My fingers trembled slightly over the keys. A cold sweat ran down my back, and my heartbeat felt so loud it seemed like everyone could hear it. The first piece was a classic among classics, a well-known masterpiece perfectly suited for the occasion. As I reached for the keys, a fleeting worry crossed my mind. What if my fingers slip? But the moment I touched the keys, the fear evaporated like mist. With each note, my body naturally fell back into rhythm. my fingers recalling movements buried deep in memory. They danced smoothly and gracefully over the keys. As the music flowed, I caught glimpses of the audience's faces softening. "Wow!" A low voice of admiration echoed through the quiet hall, and in that moment, something dormant within me awakened. It was the pride and passion I had once kept hidden deep in my heart. It was the joy of connecting with people through music. As the performance continued, the trembling in my fingers disappeared entirely. Each note seemed to convey my emotions. The powerful depth of the low notes and the delicate nuance of the high notes filled the air, enveloping the room and transporting the audience to another world. Next came the background music for the mingling portion of the party. I began playing with a mindful tone, aiming for a sound that was understated yet beautiful, ensuring it wouldn't disrupt the lively conversations. Laughter and a clinking of glasses could be heard from various corners of the venue. Those sounds blended with the piano's melody, and a sense of calm naturally spread through me. Midway through, I glanced up and noticed a little boy at the edge of the room. He seemed to be the grandson of the hotel's president, his eyes shining brightly as he watched me play, swaying gently to the music. He turned to his family excitedly, saying something. "This is the piece I'm practicing right now." Hearing his small voice reach me, a warmth spread through my chest. The sight of his small hands trying earnestly to tell his family the name of the piece, that innocent smile struck straight at my heart. Though captivated by the sight, my hands continued moving naturally. When I glanced around the room, I noticed smiles on every face. The warm atmosphere embraced me, filling my chest with a satisfying sense of fulfillment. As the party ended and the once vibrant hall quieted, with cleanup underway, a faint cool silence returned. Lingering at the piano, I continued to feel the sensation of the keys beneath my fingertips, savoring the afterglow. Caitlin re-entered the room. Her face showed signs of fatigue, but there was something more, a strong emotion she seemed to be holding back. "Aaron, may I talk to you for a moment?" Her voice was softer than usual, tinged with hesitation. I stood up and faced her. "Of course. What is it?" Caitlin briefly looked down, letting out a small sigh before continuing in a quiet tone. "The last piece you played. Why did you choose that one?" Her question caught me off guard, but her earnest eyes told me she was seeking something meaningful. "That piece, it holds a special memory for me," I began to share. "Back in my student days, I worked here part-time. At the time, I was tasked with playing the piano, performing for guests every night. There's one particular evening I'll never forget." Caitlin leaned in slightly, captivated by my story. Seeing her interest, I continued. "That night, there was a little girl dining with her family. She heard the piece I played and said, 'This song is so beautiful.' I was stunned. I never thought my performance could touch someone's heart like that." I spoke while recalling the vivid memory of that moment. It made me so happy that I'd never forgotten that scene, even after all these years. And today, I remembered it again. I thought that if I played that song here once more, maybe it could bring someone joy like it did back then. Caitlin listened silently, then softly spoke. "That little girl who called your piano playing beautiful, that was me." For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. "What?" I asked, barely able to comprehend. "Caitlin, it was you." A mix of disbelief and a deep sense of connection swirled within me. Caitlin nodded quietly and continued. "As I mentioned earlier, I often came to this restaurant with my family when I was little. Those special occasions always included piano performances, and that piece you played was my absolute favorite. I remember how happy my parents were when they heard it too." Tears welled up in Caitlin's eyes. She seemed unable to contain her emotions. "I never imagined I'd hear that song again today, let alone that you were the one playing it." I felt a warmth spreading through my chest, filling me with gratitude and fulfillment. "So that's how it was," I said. "I'm glad I took the chance to play it. Knowing that my performance left such a lasting impression on someone is the greatest happiness I could ask for." Caitlin smiled and gently wiped her tears away. Aaron, thank you so much. You brought back precious memories for me. And more than that, you made this place feel like the special space it used to be, a place that brings people joy. Her words moved me deeply, and I bowed my head to her. Thank you, Caitlin. Your dedication to this place is felt by everyone here, I'm sure of it. In the quiet of the now empty hall, we shared a moment of profound connection and gratitude. My journey into the world of piano had been a solitary struggle, with no one to support me. After graduating at the top of my class from a music conservatory in Japan, I sought my next stage abroad, dedicating everything I had to studying overseas in a foreign land. I discovered the joy of connecting with others through the language of piano. From dawn until dusk, I faced the keys, often battling my own limits as I immersed myself in relentless practice. The world of music is unforgiving, but I pushed myself forward, determined not to fall. After my efforts gradually bore fruit, the list of awards I received grew. Eventually, I held a recital in my name. The applause and the joyous smiles of the audience from that evening remain etched in my memory. As my reputation expanded, I received an offer to teach at a local music academy. I believed that continuing down the path of piano would lead me to the life I had always dreamed of. Confidence and hope for the stories I could tell through music filled my heart. But not everyone was pleased with my success. Among the other Japanese exchange students, there were those who saw me as a target of their resentment. Jealous of my success, they repeatedly harassed me in various ways. They hid the keys to the practice rooms, tore up my precious sheet music, and even spread baseless rumors about me. Aaron's only succeeding because he's pandering to his sponsors. The rumors reached my ears, but I had to ignore them. I had no choice but to prove myself through music. That was the core of my belief. But the rumors eventually reached the ears of my sponsors. We've heard troubling things about your reputation. We can no longer continue our support. With that single sentence, everything I had built came crashing down. I lost my backing, my opportunities to perform, and I was plunged into despair. Returning to Japan, I was met with a reality far harsher than I had imagined. The glorious days of the past had become a distant memory, and even when I sat at the piano, my fingers trembled and refused to move as I wanted. Every time I touched the keys, I felt nothing but helplessness and self-loathing. Everything I had poured into proving myself through music seemed to vanish like a mirage. Driven by anxiety and despair, I began to corner myself more and more. Every time I tried to practice, those voices echoed in my mind, saying, "You can't do it anymore," or "Just give up." No matter how many times I tried to touch the keys, my fingers froze, unable to produce even a proper sound. What lingered in my heart was a bittersweet attachment to music and an overwhelming fear of losing it forever. The room was filled with scattered sheet music and a piano covered in dust. Day and night blurred together as time seemed to pass meaninglessly. I lacked the energy to do anything, and the hollow sound of the television was the only thing filling the empty room. Even eating felt like a chore, and the ticking of the clock seemed unusually loud. What saved me was a call from Tom, the manager of the restaurant where I had once worked part-time. "Aaron, it's been a while. We're looking for a waiter at the restaurant right now. We don't do live music anymore. But if you're interested, why don't you give it a try?" Having distanced myself from music and on the verge of giving up playing the piano entirely, the offer felt like a blessing for someone who had grown fearful of standing on the stage and hesitant to return to normal life. His invitation seemed like a small ray of light. After a brief moment of hesitation, I replied, "Yes, please." When I returned to the restaurant, it felt different from how it had been in the past. The live performances were gone, and the interior had taken on a more modern look, but the atmosphere still carried a nostalgic charm. I began working as a waiter again. At first, I was awkward and unsure, but thanks to my kind colleagues, I gradually became more comfortable. As time passed, I found myself increasingly drawn to the piano. After work, initially, I touched the keys hesitantly, but eventually, I began playing simple pieces. To my surprise, my fingers slowly started to regain their agility. The sound of the piano felt as if it was dispelling the quiet darkness within me. Alongside my work, I began teaching piano to neighborhood children. Every time I witnessed their pure enthusiasm for learning music, my heart was filled with warmth. The clumsy sounds they produced with their small hands reminded me of my own early days, evoking a bittersweet blend of nostalgia and joy. In truth, the reason I avoided evening shifts was to make time for these lessons. Nurturing their budding love for music had become one of the most precious parts of my life. Their bright eyes and the earnestness they put into every note reminded me of the pure joy of music I had nearly forgotten. That forgotten passion was rekindling within me. For me, playing the piano at the recent party was a significant challenge. Though I had practiced during lessons and at home, it had been years since I last performed in front of an audience. I was, to be honest, terrified. Still, I didn't want to let Caitlin's tireless efforts in preparing for the party go to waste. That thought gave me the courage to step forward. Seeing how hard you've worked, Caitlin, gave me the strength I needed. "Thank you so much," I said. Caitlin responded with a gentle smile. That smile helped me rediscover what it meant to truly face music again. On the other hand, Seth's situation was rapidly shifting. His mentor, Kevin, turned out to be someone I knew all too well, a fellow alumni from the same music conservatory where I had studied abroad. He was, in fact, the very person behind the malicious harassment I endured back then. While Kevin now worked as a professor at the conservatory, his public performance opportunities had dwindled, leaving him largely confined to academic circles. Although he presented himself as a seasoned instructor, knowing his past actions made it impossible for me to fully respect his reputation. To my surprise, Kevin also had a personal history with Caitlin. He was her ex-boyfriend. The opportunity for Seth to play at the hotel came about when Kevin spotted the job posting on the conservatory's bulletin board and encouraged Seth to apply. However, when Seth mentioned the hotel and its management to Kevin, he realized that the person in charge of the restaurant was none other than Caitlin, the woman who had once rejected him. Kevin, harboring a desire to get back at Caitlin, convinced Seth to cancel his performance on the day of the party by telling him, "There's no need to take on such a job." However, their scheme backfired spectacularly. The party was a resounding success. To make matters even more complicated, members of the conservatory's administration had been invited to the event, and the one who performed as a replacement, the rival they thought they had crushed, was me. Word soon spread that the hotel had filed an official complaint with the university regarding Seth's unauthorized cancellation of his performance. When Seth heard the news, the color drained from his face. What? Why? It was just some outdated hotel event. How could it turn into such a big deal? Panicked, Seth hurriedly contacted Kevin, but Kevin's response was icy. "You're the one who sowed the seeds of this mess. If you cause any more trouble, don't expect me to stand by you." Meanwhile, news of the party's success began to circulate, and my name started gaining renewed attention in the music world. Members of the conservatory and industry professionals were deeply moved by the performance, sparking conversations about Aaron's comeback. Seth's cancellation ironically led to my reappraisal, which in turn prompted an investigation into the actions of both Seth and Kevin. The university launched a formal inquiry, including past incidents caused by their protégés. A few weeks later, the university took disciplinary action against Kevin, holding him accountable for his behavior. Evidence revealed that he had manipulated students out of jealousy and personal grudges to carry out harassment. Kevin lost his position as a professor and left the university. Seth received a strict warning. Any further misconduct would result in expulsion. Meanwhile, I continued working at the hotel as a waiter, but things had changed. Now, I regularly performed as a pianist during the hotel's live music events. After one performance, as I rested in a quiet corner of the hall, Caitlin approached me. "Aaron, today's performance was absolutely wonderful. especially the last piece. It felt as if time had stopped, she said, blushing slightly. I gave her a light smile. Thank you. That really means a lot to me. Caitlin smiles softly. Every time I see that expression, it warms my heart. One day, Caitlin called me to her office. Her expression was serious, and I wondered what it could be about. As I took my seat, she spoke. Aaron, I've received requests for you to work as an instructor at a music university. There's also an offer for a solo recital. After hearing her out, I shook my head. I turned down all of those offers. Caitlin, looking surprised, immediately asked, why? You could shine on even bigger stages. I paused, thinking deeply, unsure of how to put it into words. I decided to be honest about my feelings. I'm no longer interested in playing the piano for fame or status. What makes me truly happy is seeing the people in front of me smile. That's my dream now. Caitlin remained silent for a moment, gazing at me. Then she smiled gently and said, That's so like you, Aaron. Her words made my heart feel a little lighter. After that, Caitlin and I continued working together to make the hotel an even more captivating space. Her planning skills combined with my music seemed to naturally complement each other. The events became increasingly successful, and the smiles among the staff grew more frequent. One day, Caitlin murmured softly, Aaron, I want to support you even more. Her words surprised me, but they also warmed my heart. Thank you. I want to support you too, Caitlin. If that support comes in the form of music, I'll gladly play for you. Caitlin looked slightly surprised, but then quietly nodded. Even now, I continue both my music and my work as a waiter. But it's not for fame or recognition. It's to bring joy to those in front of me and to create a unique, special space with Caitlin, something that can only exist in this hotel. Let's keep working together, Caitlin whispered. With those words in my heart, I placed my fingers on the keys once more. In the soft light streaming into the hotel hall, I believe my piano will touch someone's heart today as well.
Kyle is my name. At Central Corporation, I serve as the president's executive assistant. I got to where I am now because of my highly regarded personality, which conceals my feelings. One day, I received a call from Mr. Yates, the president, inviting me to attend a crucial meeting with International Tech Corporation, a significant client. The negotiators for this international corporation are from a variety of countries. Mr. Yates is able to converse in English, although not very well. A translator was necessary. Small conversations started as soon as we walked into the conference room on the day of the meeting. But tension abruptly increased as one of the officials made a light-hearted remark that led to a misunderstanding. What do you mean by that? One individual pointedly questioned. Another shot back, it's a joke. Avoid taking anything too seriously. A heated argument broke out as the atmosphere swiftly soured. People began yelling at one another and pointing fingers. The conference room became a battlefield as German, French, Spanish, and Italian were spoken in addition to English. Please, everyone, calm down, Mr. Yates said in Japanese in an attempt to calm everyone down, but it was ineffective. He was clearly bewildered and frustrated. I made the brave decision to speak up, since I knew that the purchase would fall through and that Central Corporation would suffer a significant loss as a result. Hey! Everyone turned to stare at me in shock as I yelled. The stress subsided as the room became quiet. I'm Kyle, and I'm 26. At Central Corporation, I currently serve as the president's executive assistant. Despite my seemingly normal appearance, I have a strange quality. I keep my face expressionless. Even when I'm depressed or angry, I feel it on the inside, but it never comes out. People frequently perceive me as calm or chilly as a result, although it is a major misconception. Like everyone else, I'm bursting with emotions on the inside, but they don't appear on my face. I've had a lot of bad encounters since I was a kid as a result. In kindergarten, tag was a popular game in our class. One day, I was it and was chasing after the other kids with all my energy. I was having so much fun, but apparently, my face didn't reflect that at all. A friend told me about it later. At the time, I was chasing a girl when she suddenly burst into tears, and somehow, I ended up getting scolded. The teacher ran over and said, "Kyle, don't scare the other kids. You shouldn't chase them with such a face." But I was just playing. I was just playing. I tried to explain, but the teacher didn't understand at all. In the end, I got scolded for just playing, and I felt so frustrated that I started crying. No, you're wrong. I was just playing tag. In elementary school, our class pet goldfish passed away due to illness. Its name was Sparky, and it was everyone's favorite. Taking care of it was something I looked forward to every day. But one day, it suddenly stopped moving. The teacher and all my classmates cried as we said goodbye to Sparky. "Sparky, thank you. Goodbye," my friend said, wiping away tears, and it broke my heart. "Why don't we bury Sparky in the backyard?" the teacher suggested, and we all headed there. We dug a small hole with a shovel and gently buried Sparky. "Kyle, if you have something you'd like to say, please do," the teacher prompted me. I nodded silently and whispered, "Thank you, Sparky." But my expression didn't change at all. "Kyle, you're not crying at all, even though Sparky is gone," a classmate said in surprise. "Yeah, why are you so cold?" Another added, "No, I'm sad too. I just can't cry," I thought to myself but couldn't say it out loud. Inside, I was crying just like everyone else. But on the outside, I appeared indifferent. Since then, I started being treated as if I were heartless. Whenever others were chatting happily, they often grew quiet the moment I approached. I frequently overheard classmates whispering, "Kyle is so hard to read. He always seems so cold." Every day, I silently lamented, "Why doesn't anyone understand me?" Still, I couldn't change my expression. So all I could do was quietly wait for time to pass. During middle and high school, whenever we had events like sports days or school festivals, I was genuinely enjoying myself inside. But apparently, I always looked disinterested from the outside. "Kyle, you're making that cold face again. Such a buzzkill," a classmate would joke. I would silently protest in my mind, "That's not true. I'm having fun too." But I couldn't bring myself to say it aloud. During sports day, I ran as hard as I could for my class, thinking I was giving it my all, but I could still feel the cold stares from my classmates. The same thing happened at the school festival. Even though I worked hard on preparing the play and exhibits, I often heard comments like, "Kyle, can't you look a little more excited?" I felt like I was enjoying it from the bottom of my heart, but that emotion never showed on my face. Why is it just me who gets seen this way? I often asked myself over and over. Even the shock and frustration I felt didn't show on my face, so no one understood how I truly felt. I started to resent my inability to show emotions, and grew frustrated with the unchangeable nature of myself. That was how I spent my childhood. Even after entering college, things didn't improve. As I interacted with more people, my inability to express emotions outwardly caused frequent difficulties in friendships and relationships. Despite that, I worked hard, focusing on learning languages and studying to better myself. When I graduated from college and got the job at my current company, I resolved to make a fresh start. Being an executive assistant was a new challenge for me, and I believed it was a chance to test my abilities. I even started thinking that my unemotional demeanor might be an asset in staying calm under pressure. Slowly, I began to feel more optimistic. One day, as I was organizing Mr. Yates' schedule as usual, my phone rang while I was reviewing detailed arrangements and messages. It was Mr. Yates. "Yes, this is. Kyle, can you come to my office? There's something I want to share with you." "Understood. I'll be there right away." After hanging up, I quickly tidied up my desk, grabbed my notebook and pen, and headed to his office. I knocked on the door and entered quietly. Mr. Yates was talking to the woman. "Well, I'll get back to work now," the woman said in a cheerful voice. "Sure, think over what we discussed earlier," Mr. Yates replied warmly. The woman was Alice, the president's daughter, and she was my age. She worked in the accounting department to learn about the company's financial operations. When our eyes met, Alice gave a small smile and nodded politely. I returned the gesture with a quiet bow. Sitting deeply in his chair, Mr. Yates looked a bit tired as he spoke. "Sorry for calling you in so suddenly." Hearing that, I instinctively opened my notebook and prepared to take notes. "You're aware of the plan to acquire International Tech Corporation's business, right?" His voice carried a sense of determination. "Yes, I am," I nodded quietly. International Tech Corporation was one of Central Corporation's business partners, and was undergoing organizational restructuring. Central Corporation had agreed to take over their business as the primary buyer. What I'm about to discuss is an update on that, Mr. Yates continued, his voice lowering slightly. It seems that International Tech Corporation has requested group negotiations. They likely have many concerns about changes to working conditions and employment rules, so they probably want to address everything thoroughly in advance. I replied to Mr. Yates's words. Group negotiations themselves are natural, but issues that arise during the process need to be addressed. That's right, exactly. I want to prepare so the negotiations go as smoothly as possible, Mr. Yates continued, his expression growing slightly troubled. He let out a deep sigh and muttered, "Language barriers are really a struggle." International Tech Corporation was a foreign company with employees from various nationalities. Negotiating with their union would inevitably involve multinational representatives. They all speak English, but I'm worried about whether we can communicate effectively and alleviate their concerns, he said, furrowing his brow. You're right. With a multinational counterpart, cultural and language differences can lead to misunderstandings, I agreed. Language barriers can be a major obstacle in group negotiations. That's why we need to prepare carefully to ensure the negotiations go smoothly. Kyle, can you double-check the schedule? Mr. Yates asked. Understood, I replied, opening my notebook to review the schedule and mentally organizing the next steps. When Mr. Yates finished speaking, I left his office. As I stepped out, the hallway was still quiet with barely anyone around. I walked ahead while reviewing the upcoming plans. As I moved forward, Mr. Yates's words lingered in my mind. Negotiating with a multinational group is no easy task. Even so, I reminded myself that my purpose here is to overcome such challenges. Walking down the hall, I began solidifying a plan in my mind while reconfirming the schedule and organizing the necessary preparations. I thought about the best ways to lead this critical negotiation to success. On the day of the meeting with International Tech Corporation, I accompanied Mr. Yates to a rented conference room. When we entered, the union representatives from International Tech Corporation were already gathered. As expected, the group from International Tech Corporation was very multinational. Although Mr. Yates could speak some English, his conversational level meant smooth communication largely depended on me. Mr. Yates stepped forward and began his greeting. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today's meeting is a critical step in building mutual understanding and fostering a positive relationship. I translated his words into English for the International Tech Corporation representatives. The atmosphere in the room was a bit tense, but everyone nodded at Mr. Yates's words, and the mood eased slightly. After the introductions and small talk, the meeting began in earnest. With countless documents, laptops, and a projector at the ready, the discussion first addressed the concerns of International Tech Corporation employees working in the division, slated for acquisition by Central Corporation. Mr. Yates turned to the representatives from International Tech Corporation and asked, "What concerns do you have?" I translated the question into English. One of the representatives spoke up, saying, "We're worried about significant changes to our working conditions." As we delved deeper, it became clear that they had an image of Japanese people working without breaks. They were worried that with Central Corporation acquiring the business, they might be forced into such a working style. Many of them held the fixed notion that Japanese work culture is harsh. Hearing this, Mr. Yates maintained a calm expression and said, "At our company, we value our employees. I assure you that this will never happen. Let's thoroughly discuss these concerns and aim to create an even better working environment." I translated Mr. Yates's words into English, then, with a slight smile, I added, "Only a few terrible managers enforce unfair work practices. Please don't worry." The representatives from International Tech Corporation seemed somewhat reassured by these words. As the meeting progressed, their expressions gradually softened with relief. Just as it seemed the discussions would proceed smoothly, an unexpected incident occurred. One of the International Tech Corporation representatives made a light-hearted joke, intending no harm, but it completely shifted the atmosphere in the room. The comment had no malice whatsoever. It was merely a difference in values stemming from cultural differences. However, that one remark became a trigger, causing the other representatives' expressions to change and the tension in the room to escalate rapidly. One person, in a slightly irritated tone, asked, "What do you mean by that?" The original speaker, not wanting to back down, retorted, "It's just a joke. Don't take it so seriously." As these exchanges continued, the mood became increasingly strained. Sarcasm started flying back and forth, and the discussion gradually turned into an emotional confrontation. At first, the discussion was calm, but it gradually heated up, eventually escalating to the point where people stood up, pointing fingers at one another. "You're the one who said that," someone shouted. "Enough already," another yelled. Shouts in English echoed throughout the room, soon accompanied by insults in various native languages. English, German, French, Spanish, and Italian merged into a chaotic mix of angry voices. Indeed, some of the remarks did contain malice. This only fueled the frustration further, escalating the situation into complete chaos. Yet when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror on the conference room wall, my face was completely expressionless. Though I felt a deep sense of anxiety internally, my outward calmness almost seemed to ground me. The representatives from International Tech Corporation continued arguing fiercely in their native languages. The room felt like a battlefield, with English, German, French, Spanish, and Italian flying in every direction. Unable to understand their words, Mr. Yates looked visibly frustrated and confused. He tried to calm the room in Japanese. "Everyone, please settle down," he said. But it had no effect. "Everyone, calm down," he shouted, raising his voice. However, his words were drowned out by the commotion. Whether they couldn't hear him or didn't understand him, the representatives continued their heated arguments. If this continued, the acquisition negotiations would collapse, leaving only the restructuring of International Tech Corporation's operations. If that were to happen, it would be a significant loss for Central Corporation. Both Mr. Yates and the company itself would undoubtedly face a major crisis. Mr. Yates's expression grew tense, reflecting his growing concern. Realizing the futility of the situation, I made a bold decision. I raised my voice. "Hey!" I shouted loudly, surprising even myself. I may have never shouted this emotionally in my entire life. The moment I raised my voice, everyone fell silent, turning to look at me in astonishment. The room was suddenly quiet, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Feeling their eyes on me, I began speaking in English. "Everyone, please calm down. If we let our emotions take over like this, we won't be able to accomplish anything." Choosing my words carefully, I continued addressing everyone. "We are all here with a shared goal. This discussion isn't just for us. It's for the people we represent." As my words resonated, I could sense the tension gradually easing. I then repeated the same message in each of their native languages. First, I spoke in German. Next, I addressed them in French, then Italian, and finally Spanish. With each language, I noticed their expressions changing little by little. Eventually, they began nodding in agreement, and the tension in the room started to dissipate. Then, I reported to Mr. Yates in Japanese. I told everyone to calm down. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "Thank you, Kyle." Altogether, I conveyed the message in 6 languages, including English and Japanese, capturing the nuances to ensure everyone understood. Those who had been arguing sat back down, apologizing quietly as they did. Still, a slight awkwardness lingered in the air. Although most of them had regained their composure, traces of emotional tension remained. Mr. Yates scanned the room and spoke. "It seems we're no longer in the right mood to hold calm and productive discussions today." I added, "Yes, everyone likely needs time to cool their heads." Mr. Yates addressed the group with a suggestion. "Let's reschedule and meet again on another day with the same purpose in mind." Everyone agreed to this proposal, and the meeting was adjourned. Relieved that the situation had been resolved without further escalation, I left the venue. On the way back in the car, I sat at the wheel, feeling the tension gradually lift. In the back seat, Mr. Yates gazed out the window, then suddenly spoke. "I must say I was truly surprised today. I knew you were strong in English, but I didn't expect you to be fluent in German and French too. You're a true polyglot." Keeping my eyes on the road ahead, I responded calmly. "It's an honor to receive your praise, Mr. Yates." Mr. Yates chuckled and said, "Your language skills are remarkable, but you studied in Japan, didn't you? Did you go on a short-term study abroad program?" For a moment, memories from my past came to mind as I replied, "Yes, I've had some short-term study abroad experiences. However, that's not all. I've had various opportunities to learn." Looking intrigued, Mr. Yates continued, "I see. I'm truly impressed by your language skills, calm judgment, and how you handle today's situation. Do you have any special methods for studying languages?" I smiled slightly before answering. Well, I began recounting my story, reflecting on my childhood. When I was in the early years of elementary school, I often played alone. Unable to make many friends, I spent my days reading books in the corner of the classroom or catching insects at the edge of the schoolyard. One thing that fascinated me, however, was watching English language educational programs on TV. Every evening, I would sit in front of the TV in the living room, staring intently at the screen and muttering English phrases under my breath. Noticing this, my mother said, "Maybe Kyle has an interest in languages. Kyle, would you like to try attending an English conversation class?" she suggested. I accepted her offer and started attending a children's English conversation school. Though I was nervous at first, I gradually became captivated by the fun of learning English. After class, I would return home to read English textbooks and novels. Each time I encountered new words or expressions in the books, I felt an excitement that was hard to describe. By the time I entered middle school, I had developed an interest in other languages beyond English. One day, while watching a movie, I heard dialogue in German and Italian. I was mesmerized by how beautiful they sounded and immediately began learning those languages. "Kyle, do you enjoy studying so many languages?" my mother once asked me curiously. "It's so much fun," I replied. That simple answer summed up everything I felt. Around the time I finished high school entrance exams, I was playing a horror video game and realized the enemies were speaking Spanish. In that moment, my curiosity about Spanish was piqued, and I began learning it as well. "Kyle, you really like taking on so many challenges," my father once said, impressed. For me, learning languages was an adventure, a key to opening doors to new worlds. This passion for languages continued throughout my school years. When I entered college and had more free time, I used the money I earned from part-time jobs to travel to countries where the languages I had learned were spoken. "Kyle, are you going on another trip?" "Where to this time?" a friend asked me eagerly. "Yes, I'm planning to visit Germany this time. I'm really interested in their culture and history," I replied. When I arrived in Germany, I found myself even more drawn to the language as I experienced the local streets and lifestyle. Interacting with the locals allowed me to discover the joy of learning living languages. One day, while chatting with a German friend at a cafe, he asked, "Your German is quite good. How long have you been studying?" "Just a few years, but speaking it here is incredibly fun," I responded. After that, I visited countries where the languages I had learned were spoken, such as Italy, Spain, and France. Experiencing the local cultures and traditions only deepened my desire to continue learning. "Kyle, I heard you're learning French now too. You really can speak so many languages," a friend once remarked in admiration. "Yes, I even went on a short-term study program to France. It helped me improve a lot," I replied. My time in France was a tremendous experience. I attended college classes, conversed with French friends, and learned new expressions and phrases. Living with a host family, I used French daily in practical situations, which sharpened my skills even further. "Kyle, your French pronunciation is becoming quite natural," my host mother once complimented me. "Thank you. I've learned so much thanks to all of you," I said, expressing my gratitude. With each journey and learning experience, I steadily improved. By my senior year of college, I had become proficient in Japanese, English, German, Italian, Spanish, and French. 6 languages in total. "Kyle, you're truly amazing. I can't believe you can speak so many languages," a friend once said. "Thank you, but there's still so much more to learn," I replied. I had already decided to keep learning new languages moving forward. Though I had gained valuable skills, the job hunting process was far more challenging than I had anticipated. I thought my ability to remain calm and collected during interviews would be an advantage, but it often backfired. "Kyle, your credentials are impressive, but could you show a bit more enthusiasm?" One interviewer once told me, "I am passionate about this, but it doesn't always show outwardly," I explained, though my words didn't seem to change the interviewer's expression. Being calm is a good thing, but others likely perceived it as coldness or a lack of sincerity. From my past experiences, I understood this all too well. Teamwork and collaborating within an organization had always felt like a weak point for me. Maybe I'm better suited for working behind the scenes, I reflected. That's when the idea of becoming a secretary occurred to me. I thought supporting someone and working in the background might align with my personality. Being an executive assistant, it might not be a bad idea, I thought, and began looking through executive assistant job postings. When I came across the listing for an executive assistant position at Central Corporation, I felt a sense of destiny. My calm demeanor and language skills were recognized, and I successfully secured the position, becoming Mr. Yates's executive assistant. Even after starting my job, I continued studying languages. Learning new languages brought me immense joy. During our ride back to the office, Mr. Yates laughed heartily after hearing about my struggles during my school years. "You're such an interesting person, Kyle. I like you even more now." While I felt a little embarrassed inside, my expression remained the same as always, calm and composed. Mr. Yates seemed captivated by the story and continued his praise. "It's truly incredible that you've managed to master so many languages on your own. Plus, your composure is a tremendous asset. I'm so glad you're my executive assistant." Hearing his words, I smiled inwardly. "Thank you, but I still have much to learn." Mr. Yates nodded with satisfaction and continued, "Kyle, having someone like you is invaluable to the company. You've been such a great help to us." Grateful for his words, I kept driving without letting my emotions show outwardly. I'm just doing my best to contribute in any way I can. If that helps the company, then I'm happy. Mr. Yates nodded again, clearly pleased, and added, "I have high expectations for you, Kyle. I'm counting on you moving forward." Feeling slightly embarrassed inside, but maintaining my usual calm expression, I replied, "Of course. I'll do my best to support you." Even after that, Mr. Yates continued praising me all the way to the office. Each time, I silently expressed my gratitude, while calmly continuing to drive. By the time we arrived, I felt a newfound confidence and a deep sense of gratitude toward Mr. Yates. The next day, my inbox was flooded with emails from the participants of the previous meeting, apologizing for their behavior. Each email expressed regret for the emotional outbursts and a request to reschedule the meeting. "I'm truly sorry for what happened yesterday. I let my emotions get the better of me and disrupted the discussion. Could we please have another opportunity to meet?" Many of the emails also included comments about how my words had resonated with them. Kyle's words, "This discussion isn't just for us here," really struck a chord with me. I've realized I wasn't acting with the responsibility of a union representative in mind, and I deeply regret that. A new date was set, and the same participants gathered once again with a renewed purpose. This time, the atmosphere was calm and composed, reflecting the lessons learned from the previous session. "We're determined to make up for our previous mistakes. Thank you for giving us another chance." The discussion progressed constructively, focusing on revising regulations and addressing concerns about the acquisition. The representatives proposed ideas and asked questions one after another, and Mr. Yates responded to each one with care. At Central Corporation, we prioritize our employees, no matter where they're from. We aim to provide an equally comfortable working environment. We will continue to review and improve as needed and value your input in this process. The meeting went smoothly, and a solid foundation for the new framework was established. Though there would still be adjustments and additions to make, the immediate goal was achieved. This moment marked not only a step forward for the negotiation, but also the point where my calm demeanor and multilingual abilities earned the trust of everyone present. Today's discussion was incredibly productive, Kyle. It wouldn't have gone this smoothly without your support. Thank you so much. I responded to Mr. Yates's words with a quiet smile. Thank you as well. It was all thanks to everyone's efforts. I look forward to continuing to work together. With that, we took a significant step forward. Thanks to their cooperation, the company was steadily advancing. Sometime later, the business Central Corporation had acquired began to stabilize. The employees in that division were primarily from overseas, and as time passed, the differences in their cultures and values became more apparent. There are some aspects of Japanese work culture that don't quite align with us. One employee remarked. "What specific issues are you facing?" I asked. "For example, how we take vacations and approach tasks. Things are more flexible back home," they explained. Though the complaints weren't numerous, they weren't entirely absent either. Whenever such concerns arose, Mr. Yates would listen earnestly. "Please don't hesitate to share anything that will help improve your work environment. We're committed to being as flexible as possible." Following this policy, I engaged in direct dialogue with the workers. My communication skills proved invaluable as a bridge between different cultures. "Kyle, thank you for always listening. Thanks to you, things feel like they're gradually improving." Such messages of gratitude became more frequent as we worked on ongoing improvements. The efforts of Mr. Yates and I were yielding tangible results. The collaboration between people with different cultures and values continued to create a better workplace. One day, Mr. Yates called me to his office. When I knocked and entered, he was grinning as usual. "Kyle, it's good to see you. If you hadn't stopped everyone's quarrel back then, who knows what would have happened, don't you agree?" He began. "Thank you. I'm glad I could be of some help at that moment," I replied. Mr. Yates, still grinning, continued. "You have excellent language skills, and you handle your duties as an executive assistant efficiently. I rely on you a great deal." Feeling slightly puzzled, I continued listening. "To be honest, I think it's a waste to keep you just by my side. How about this? Our company has many departments, so why don't you rotate through them over a few years?" Rotating through departments. That's an interesting suggestion. "May I ask why?" I inquired. Mr. Yates laughed heartily and replied, "It's for learning. There's something I'd like you to do in the future." After a brief pause, I replied, "Understood. If it helps me improve my skills, I'd be happy to take on the challenge." "Wonderful. That makes me happy," he said enthusiastically. Then with a grin, he added one more thing. "How about a matchmaking meeting?" I was so stunned I couldn't form a reply. "Ah, excuse me?" Mr. Yates continued. "Well, there's someone inexperienced in matters of love. Her name is Alice." I was inwardly stunned beyond belief. Alice was Mr. Yates's daughter, and the heiress of the company. Is he trying to groom me to become the next president? I thought, feeling a wave of panic. Noticing my reaction, Mr. Yates laughed. "It seems you figured it out," he said. Hearing those words, I grew even more flustered. On the morning of the matchmaking meeting, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie. I hadn't slept well the night before due to nerves, and my eyes looked puffy. Adjusting my tie again, I let out a deep sigh. I've never been in a relationship before, and now I'm suddenly having a matchmaking meeting with the president's daughter, I muttered to myself. Glancing back at the mirror, I noticed my face was distorted with nerves and flushed with embarrassment. Seeing that, I couldn't help but smile. "Well, look at that. I can pull myself together when I need to," I muttered. Facing the mirror once again, I resolved to meet Mr. Yates's expectations. I shook off my inner doubts and faced forward with a smile, not succumbing to anxiety or fear, but trusting in my own abilities and moving forward. This was my new challenge. Taking a deep breath, I calmed my mind. Life presents us with various trials and encounters, each one a stepping stone for growth. I felt that this trial, too, was an important opportunity to take a step forward. "All right, let's go," I resolved silently, stepping away from the mirror. Believing I could overcome any obstacle, I took my first step toward a new journey. I didn't know what the future held, but I vowed to trust in my convictions and efforts, to keep looking ahead, and to keep moving forward. And so, a new story began. In my heart, I thought, it's the courage and actions of individuals that nurture connections between people and carve out a brighter future.
"A $10 deposit is just a hassle for us," was John's scornful laugh. "Our bank is losing money because of the fees and my work time." Oh, but I suppose the impoverished wouldn't comprehend. I wanted to respond, but I tried not to get into a fight with my kids. I said nothing but John's. Taunt simply got worse, and the process didn't move forward. Perhaps it's not feasible today. It seemed pointless to wait around, but there was little need in staying any longer if we couldn't finish the paperwork. I was going to grasp my son Kevin's hand as I turned to go, but he pulled on mine instead. Kevin had a firm hold on my left hand. "Please let me use your cell, Mom." The cell phone that was protruding from my pocket was subsequently taken by him. He's usually so well-behaved that I was shocked by his strong action. After that, Kevin called someone. John had no idea what was going to happen next. My spouse, Mike, and I met in middle school. My name is Kate. We were merely students at the time and didn't communicate much. As a result, the only memory I have of him is, I remember him from the class photos. After we both grew up and reconnected during a reunion, we became much closer. Everyone let loose due to the thrill of finally meeting together, and my old classmates began revealing secrets while intoxicated. I was the one who broke the window back then. Or, we always failed making treats in home. Economics class, and so we gave them to the guys, were examples of their initial naive recollections. The confessions, however, became increasingly outlandish as the drinking went on, finally resulting in rumors such as so-and-so had a crush on so-and-so. They also disseminated rumors about others who weren't taking part. Sadly, Mike, who was calmly enjoying his drink at the edge, was singled out. He never spoke to Kate, but he had a crush on her. I was thrilled to hear this and impulsively asked him out. Unexpectedly, Mike agreed right away. We immediately exchanged phone numbers and arranged a date. I meant to end things, because I was intoxicated when I inadvertently did that. I realized it was awful. It was simply too self-centered to ask someone out when intoxicated and then want to pretend it never occurred. However, after I sobered up, I was afraid to date someone I barely knew. Mike laughed and asked if I could go on a fictitious date with him for a day when I told him when. He got to the meeting spot. Embarrassed, I nodded. As it happens, I kept going out with Mike. After that date, I just liked having him around. As we got to know each other better, the Mike I didn't know well disappeared, and I began to see him as a man. When I shared this with Mike, he hugged me tightly, even though he had never tried to hold my hand before. Caught off guard by the sudden intimacy, Mike knelt down and said, "I've been waiting for you to feel this way. If you're okay with it, I'd like to date you with marriage in mind." All I could say was, yes. Soon after, we got married and had a child. We named our son Kevin. Mike was inspired by his father, whom he respected, and so we decided on this name. Mike was embarrassed, but I thought it was cool. Then we found out we were expecting our second child. Having a good husband and being blessed with children, I felt that my life was smooth sailing. Now, I live with my 4-year-old son Kevin and my 6-month-old daughter May. Yes, just the three of us. My husband Mike is sadly no longer with us. He passed away in an accident just before our daughter was born. He was rear-ended on his way home from work. It was a sudden accident. Afterward, he was taken to the hospital, but he passed away before our family could even say goodbye. Losing my husband to such a tragic event, I was devastated. On his days off, he would tirelessly devote himself to our family, never showing signs of work fatigue. Knowing he didn't want to cut corners at work, I once asked him, "Aren't you overdoing it?" With a big smile, he replied, "Thanks for worrying, but making my beloved family happy is the best way to blow away my tiredness. I know of nothing else that does it better." He wanted to be a good role model for our children. He strived to be a good father. I believe his earnest love was fully felt by Kevin, our only child at the time. I even resented my husband for leaving us with only good memories. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll protect you." But it was Kevin who said that to me. Looking at how I felt, it was one of the few things Mike had managed to teach Kevin while he was alive. "Remember, Kevin, when I'm not around, it's your job to protect Mom." Thanks to Kevin's encouragement, with a smile just like his father's, I was able to recover. Later, as my pregnancy progressed, I had to be hospitalized. During my hospital stay, Kevin, brought by his grandparents and visited me often, bringing a lot of cheer with his smiles. Thanks to that, I was able to safely give birth to my daughter May. After May's birth, becoming a family of 3, I was apprehensive about the upcoming whirlwind of parenting. Even with Kevin, it had been parenting with Mike's help. However, it wasn't as bad as I feared. Amazingly, my Amayo came to help. "Kate, you've worked hard giving birth, so take a rest," she said. While doing the housework, the kids really took to her. Heaven would often follow her around, calling her grandma, to the point of making me a bit jealous. But during that unstable postpartum period, having some time to myself was a huge relief. Even after Mike passed away, his parents treated not only the children, but also me like their own family. Every time I see my in-laws, I deeply feel how much I'm cherished. I'm truly glad to be part of this family. That's something I can truly feel from the bottom of my heart. There was also another person who looked after our family. He's Oliver, Mike's subordinate. Mike often invited him over for dinner after work. He always hesitated, saying, "Oh no, that's too much." But he never failed to go for seconds, which was quite memorable. When we had barbecues on holidays, he would be invited by Mike and would play with Kevin, enjoying their time together. Initially shy, by the end of the barbecue, Kevin would say with a smile, "It was fun, like having two dads." After a few more meetings and playtimes, Kevin naturally started calling him Uncle Oliver. After Mike's death, Oliver began taking Kevin to parks and amusement parks on holidays. While he took care of Kevin, I could spend quiet time with newborn May. Above all, I am grateful to Oliver, because Kevin always comes back with a big smile saying, "It was so much fun." One day, we were on our way to the bank. It had been put off due to childbirth and parenting, but we needed to set up a new account to receive Mike's inheritance and life insurance. After May turned 6 months old and could hold her head up, I could use a baby carrier. This enabled me to free up one hand to hold Kevin, increasing our opportunities for outings together. Kevin doesn't suddenly start running. He would walk closely beside me, his serious expression resembling that of a little bodyguard. The bank we were aiming for was a major one located near our house, where my husband had an account. It was my first time opening an account there, and I decided to go in person out of curiosity and a desire to see it. Despite it being a weekday afternoon, the bank was bustling with people. I was glad I had made an appointment online. However, I had just heaved a sigh of relief when I realized that my outfit was standing out. I was rushed off my feet looking after the kids since morning, ending up in a casual outfit of denim and a t-shirt. Moreover, I was carrying a backpack filled with necessities for Kevin and baby May. Inside the bank, nearly everyone else was dressed formally, and I felt suddenly embarrassed by my lack of makeup and casual look. I wished I had dressed more appropriately, but it was too late to go back. So I just wanted to finish my business and leave. I joined a queue and informed the staff member that I had an appointment. As soon as the male receptionist saw me, he stared at me intently from head to toe. "Please wait in the waiting area. We'll call you by your number," he said. I was bothered by his snide tone, but no, that couldn't be it. That must be my misunderstanding. The staff member was wearing a name tag that read John. He stood up and went to the counter as soon as my registration was finished, then whispered something to the employee. There, I felt uncomfortably scrutinized the whole time, but decided not to dwell on it. To be ready for the kids' bathroom needs, I sat near a restroom along the wall and waited to be called. After a while, I noticed something odd. People who arrived after me were being called before me. Checking my number, I confirmed it wasn't just my imagination. Maybe they called my number while I took the kids to the bathroom, and I missed it. Being new to this bank, I assumed it was their system. Number 144. Is number 144 here? Once again, a later number was called. Apparently, someone didn't show up when their number was called. A staff member emerged from the counter area, and that staff searched around and then approached an elderly woman dozing in a chair, assisting her to the counter. They were incredibly kind, and it was heartwarming to watch. No, that's not it. Something's wrong. Am I being deliberately ignored? I thought it seemed impossible, but given the receptionist's earlier behavior, it doesn't seem entirely out of the question. I adjusted my backpack and took Kevin's hand. I then headed back to the reception. The staff member there had changed to a younger one next. His name tag on his chest had a plate that read in training. He must be a new employee. Good, I thought. He might take me seriously, seeing that there were fewer people around. I asked if my number had been overlooked or if I was being skipped. Well, we're calling numbers in order, the young staff member stammered. After that, he kept repeating, we call numbers in order, like a parrot. Whenever I asked anything further, wondering if he thought I was complaining, he seemed to panic, making me feel sorry for him. Not wanting to be too hard and risk getting dirty looks myself, I decided to step back and return to my original seat on the bench. Waiting wasn't a big deal for me alone, but I had the kids with me. I hadn't brought many diapers for May, not expecting such a long wait. My son was being patient, but I knew his boredom would turn into stress eventually. Perhaps sensing my anxiety, my daughter became fussy. I waited to be called while soothing her. Number 102, is anyone here? Ultimately, I was called more than 3 hours after my initial arrival. There were hardly any people left in the waiting area, and it seemed I was the last to be called. It was an excessively long wait. Even though I had no other plans besides the bank that day, it was now getting close to dinner time, and I needed to hurry. I walked briskly to the counter. To my dismay, it was that rude staff member who was there. His name tag clearly read John. He continued to look down on me with a bleeding, condescending gaze. He sighed as soon as I sat down, drained of the energy to be irritated. I ignored John's sigh and conveyed my need to open an account. You could have opened an account online, you know. Seriously, coming to our bank with kids in tow is unthinkable. Well, when you're poor, I guess you can't afford to mind your time and place, he said that to me while smirking condescendingly. I wondered why I had to endure such treatment. I didn't even want to continue the conversation. Excuse me, I have another appointment after this. Could we hurry up? That was a lie. I had no other plans but wanted to finish opening the account and leave quickly. I didn't want my son, Kevin, to witness such adult behavior for too long. Busy as a bee, I see. Thanks for your hard work. He lazily spread out the documents. I quickly filled out the necessary information and handed them back. You'll need to make an initial deposit. Do you have cash on hand? Such a rude man. His words drip with condescension, but getting too upset might upset my daughter May again. If that was the case, this staff member would likely become even more aggressive. I needed to stay calm. Is $10 okay? It was embarrassing to say $10, given the previous comments about being poor, but that was all I had. John picked up the bill from the tray, fluttering it with a sneer. A deposit of just $10 is troublesome for us, you know. He continued mockingly, considering the fees and my work time. This is a loss for our bank, but I guess you wouldn't understand, being poor and all. I wanted to avoid any confrontation, especially in front of my children, so I remained silent, listening to John's escalating insults. He ranted about how the initial deposit reflects stress in the bank and how ignorant I was not to know this. Eventually, sneering as he pointed to the head of household section on the form, he said, "You probably drove your man away with such ignorance, didn't you?" For the first time, I felt more baffled than angry. Strangely, even though Mike was being ridiculed, I felt as if it was all happening to someone else, almost as if I had reached enlightenment. John's words just slid through my mind like a severe case of idleness. It seemed impossible to get anything done today. Waiting here was a waste of time if we couldn't complete the process. As I was about to leave with Kevin, he tugged at my hand. Instead, I could feel the strength in his grip. "Mom, can I borrow your phone, please?" He said that, and then took the cell phone sticking out of my pocket. Usually, he's so well-behaved that his sudden assertive action left me stunned. Then Kevin made a call to someone. The call connected almost instantly. Grandpa, hey, can I cancel the $500 million account? While I was stunned by Kevin's words, John burst into laughter. What are you talking about? At your age, you should know how to count money. Poor. Education must be a thing in a poor family. Huh? That's sad. In contrast to John's mocking laughter, my son smiled cheerfully. Then, looking at me, he said, with energy, I told Grandpa about this guy. He's coming over now. It seemed Grandpa was already on his way, making it hard to cancel. Now, John, overhearing our conversation, must have thought it would take a while. He lazily started to speak. Taking up the time of capable people shows how ignorant you are. That's why you're poor. I thought to myself, you're the rude one. But it was clear that John was beyond reason. I gave up trying to converse with him and just waited. A few minutes later, the buzz among the staff signaled the arrival of Grandpa. My Phil. He was dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, but his slightly disheveled hair suggested he had rushed over. Upon seeing him approach, John froze. You should have called me if you were coming, my Phil said nonchalantly while patting Kevin's head. I thought it would just be a quick account setup, and I didn't want to bother you, he nodded in satisfaction. He was smiling constantly, but his eyes were not as he looked at John. What? Finally reacting, John jumped up from his chair, retreating while trying to hide his twisted smile with his hand. Mr. President, why are you here? My Phil, also Kevin's grandfather, was the bank president, of course. It seemed John recognized the face of the head of his workplace right away as he turned pale. My husband had also worked at this bank. Phil was stricter in business than my husband, so my husband had used no connections for his job entry. He focused on gaining field experience, but soon there were suggestions to promote him to become an executive due to his competence. Despite his youth, then came the tragic accident, and his path to climbing the corporate ladder was cut short. The $500 million mentioned by Kevin was the savings Mike had accumulated before our marriage. So, John, is what my grandson said true? John fled, replying, No, that's not exactly. It was clear from his demeanor that Kevin's words were true, with John's eyes darting back and forth. Phil leaned over the counter and said in a stern voice, I don't recall making this bank one that judges customers by their appearance. Afterward, when my Phil explained to John that I was his daughter-in-law, he became terribly flustered and apologized profusely. It's not about special treatment for family. Judging by appearance and assumptions is unacceptable. Have some shame, he said. It was the first time I saw my always amiable FIL angry, and it carried the weight befitting a bank president. A man who seemed to be John's supervisor came rushing, apologizing profusely. But at my FIL's command of, take him away, he was quickly led to the back. Returning to his usual, cheerful demeanor, my FIL relayed a message to a nearby staff member, then told me to sit at the counter and wait before leaving the bank. He must have carved out time from his busy schedule for this. As I waited, as instructed, our replacement staff member came to assist me promptly. That was Oliver, my husband's former colleague. I apologize for John's behavior. I'll be handling your case, so please feel free to ask anything, he said. He proceeded with the process smoothly, and the account was opened without further issues. Uncle Oliver, let's play again soon, Kevin said, happy to see Oliver. He waved goodbye until we could no longer see each other. Watching this, my accumulated negative feelings from today's event seemed to vanish. By the time I left the bank, I was smiling. I realized again what my husband used to say. Nothing makes me happier than seeing our child happy. Later, we visited my in-laws to express our gratitude. But as soon as my FIL saw me at the door, He apologized before I could even say thank you. I'm sorry. As the bank president, I should take responsibility for my employees' rude actions. I sincerely apologize, he said. I felt apologetic instead because he had helped us this time. When I told him that he didn't need to apologize, he knelt to be eye to eye with Kevin and took his hand. Kevin, thank you for protecting Kay's precious wife. I'm truly grateful, he said, looking directly into my FIO's serious eyes. Kevin, with an equally earnest expression, said, "It's a promise I made. With Dad." He stated it clearly. Upon hearing this, my FIO momentarily looked surprised but then just said, "I see," and affectionately ruffled Kevin's hair. Returning from my in-laws' house, I was informed about John. My FIO had intended to bring it up at lunch, but my mother-in-law prevented the conversation, fearing it would spoil the meal. Seeing their earnestness and thoughtful care, I wondered if this is how my husband would have been if he were alive, which brought tears to my eyes. Apparently, John had received complaints about his customer service attitude even before he met me. The branch manager had repeatedly attempted to guide him, but without any improvement. It seemed they were struggling. However, being directly reprimanded by the bank president seemed to have impacted John. He has become much quieter now. He was removed from counter duties and reassigned to menial tasks. My FIL expressed his frustration about wanting to fire John, but couldn't due to employment rules. However, I was content knowing I wouldn't have to encounter him again. On another day, Oliver came to visit. Despite it being his day off, he came because he remembered something Kevin had said when leaving. Watching them play while holding May, I noticed Kevin was still visibly happy. By evening, Kevin, tired from playing, had fallen asleep. Oliver cleaned the soccer ball they had been playing with before placing it beside Kevin. Since Kevin enjoyed it, it was worth the visit. "Thank you," I said. I was the one who was thankful, really. Kevin, usually appearing tense, returned to his childlike demeanor when playing with Oliver. As a mother, I felt I had deprived Kevin of his childhood. It's a sad thing to admit, but with Oliver, Kevin could be a child again, and I am deeply grateful for that. When I shared these thoughts, Oliver, with his always kind smile, said, "This ma'am, you're doing your best. That's why Kevin is imitating you. But if you want to ease his burden, please rely on me. I can't replace his father, but I'll surely be a support. I know I will continue to rely on his kind and strong spirit. After my husband's death, it felt like I was being swallowed by a gaping hole in my heart. However, the connections with people that Mike, who should have been gone, had left behind ended up saving me. Mill, FIL, Oliver, and especially Kevin and May pulled me through. They are all such wonderful people, more than I deserve. I will live my life being supported by them. I wonder how Mike